stories. One night in November of 2017, when I was 22 years old, my mom and I went grocery shopping. While standing in the bakery section, my mom and I ran into my aunt, and the three of us stood there and chit-chatted for a while. I had been feeling generally uneasy around this time because I had recently been watching a lot of YouTube videos about true crime and creepy encounters. I was having trouble sleeping and had been getting scared when I was home alone and heard the tiniest noises. Due to this uneasiness or paranoia, I guess, I was very alert and on edge at the bakery at my grocery store. I stood there with my back to the bagels and kept an eye on everyone walking around past us as my mom and aunt shared stories. Nobody seemed suspicious until I caught the eye of a prematurely balding man. He looked like your average mid-30s brooding neckbeard nice guy. I remember thinking to myself, God, he's kinda creepy looking, isn't he? As he walked through the produce section into the bakery, but then I started to feel bad. Chill out, you're being way too judgmental, I told myself, going so far as to even smile at him out of sheer guilt. He's probably staring at you because you're staring at him. He's just glancing on his way by. He's going to forget about you the second he takes his eyes off of you, right? Wrong. I completely forgot about this experience for a few blissfully ignorant months. Then in January, I received a messenger request from an old friend I'd like to touch with. My long-lost friend was the first of many to reach out, saying that there was a lot of buzz on Facebook about a local sex offender who had been taking pictures of young women with hair he deemed pretty, some in their 20s, like me, some well below the age of 18, and posting them on a picture-sharing site. I don't know exactly how, but his online albums stocked with, and I am not exaggerating, thousands of these pictures had been found, and a bunch of screenshots were being plastered all over Facebook to raise awareness. My old friend saw a few pictures of me standing against the bagels, flanked by my mother and my aunt, my long hair hanging down and my post-French braid waves. I felt sick to my stomach when I saw the screenshots. I told my family about what I just found out, and my brother immediately called the police to report it. As he was talking to an officer, I received more screenshots, this time of the creep's sex offender registry page. It was the man from the grocery store, the man I was initially unnerved by, the man I felt guilty about, the man I smiled at. When my brother got off the phone with the police, he told us that they had been flooded with reports all night. While sympathetic, the policeman my brother spoke to said there was nothing they could do, as the creep was legally within his rights to take those pictures of us out in public. The man was allegedly assaulted outside of a convenience store the night his pictures were discovered. Before he even realized it, he had been exposed, and he has since been arrested for possession of child pornography in an unrelated case. My brother had actually been aware of this guy long before, as he was apparently infamous on the net for being a sketchy white dude who was obsessed with Asian women, had a hair fetish, and oh yeah, was a convicted sex offender. So as they say, creepy photographer, let's not meet again. I met Jacob in my science class, but we actually started talking during a dumb assembly, and we sat together because we were both the loner types in our class. We had so much in common, and I grew to love him as a friend. We were really close. I was a very shy girl, never talked about what was going on with me mentally with anyone, but I could trust Jacob I told him what my mother's boyfriend was doing to me, what Alex was like, and he helped me feel happy again. I told him how Alex was abusive and how I felt trapped with him. Jacob was always there when I got bruises and whatnot. Eventually, me and Alex had a fight, and I told him we were over because he only talked about sex. I felt like a weight was off of my shoulders for once. I told Jacob right away, and all he said was perfect. I thought it was a bit odd, but continued to hang out for the next few days. He suddenly asked me out, and I told him, Jacob, no, I just got out of a relationship that really fucked me up. I can't handle that right now. He seemed very upset, but understood, so I thought. I come into my science class early to see Jacob crying with the teacher for some reason. She was a great teacher, always helped people struggling. She looked at me and waved me over. Hey, I know you guys are besties. What's going on? I have no idea. Jacob says you don't want to be friends with him anymore. Did something happen? I never said that. He asked me out and I said no, I want to be friends. Oh, I'm sorry. But Jacob, can't you forgive your bestie? You guys have been so close. You don't want to throw that away, huh? He just never responded and didn't show for school for like a week. I was worried and just told him I was here for him and didn't mean to upset him. He came back and it's like he was a different person. He had a huge scar on his neck, like he had been choked or something, and big scars on his wrists. I immediately started bawling my eyes out and hugged him, asking what happened.
You don't love me, so I punished myself.
I dropped to the floor, crying, by my locker. I didn't know what to do. I loved my best friend, but I didn't want to date him. I just stayed by his side at all times. I tried to make him happy, like I used to. Nothing. He told me if I wanted to help, I'd have to kiss him better, and I just couldn't do that. Day after day, he told me how it's my fault he's depressed and hurting himself. So after a while, I started cutting, and because I was dealing with eating disorders, this didn't help. I just stopped eating for 2 months, where most of the time I'd switched to bulimia. I was so pale, my rib cage started showing a bit, and I looked unhealthy to the point my teacher got the school involved. I told them everything. I told them how I didn't want to lose Jacob, and I didn't want him to die because I didn't want to date him. And then he stopped coming to school. A month, and he was nowhere. I thought he was in the hospital or something. I asked my teacher if she knew if he was okay. She told me they sent him to a different school and that he wasn't allowed to talk to me or see me because he threatened other kids who I was close with that he would hurt me if they talked to me, and those kids told the school. A few months later, I finally started to try and get better after we moved back to my old town. I get a friend request. The profile picture is something like in a horror film. It's Jacob with bloody bandages on his face revealing only one eye, and under the name of Gregory Black. I did not accept it, but got some creepy messages about how I'm not smart and that I make him go crazy, and how his mother threw him into a psych ward or something and he finally got out. I have no idea if anything he said was true, but honestly, I got fed up with him. I didn't care about him being my old bestie. He was awful, he needed help, and he refused it. I blocked him, and I haven't heard from him since. So Jacob, let's not meet again. Now I'm healthy, I eat 3 meals a day, and I'm sober. I still have anxiety and depression, but I plan on getting help, and though I wish no harm on him, I really do hope he gets the help he needs. Know your worth and know when you need to leave. This leads into why I was so messed up with the Neckbeard story. Even with all of this bad shit that happened to me, I don't look for sympathy. I only hope that if you are struggling to get help or leave a situation before it messes you up. I definitely learned a lot through my experiences, and I am proud of who I am today. Don't be afraid to ask for help, or to tell your family or anyone you can trust to get out of a bad place. I was working at a fabric and craft store when I encountered who I am going to call Neckbeard. The first time we met, he was needing help getting something off of a shelf and wandered to my side of the store, the fabric side. Of course, I go and help him, and it's customary at the store to ask, "What are you working on?" He tells me he makes what I can only describe as nerd stuff to sell at conventions. I tell him that's super cool, and I am a cosplayer myself and attend many conventions. He thanks me and goes on his way. The next week he shows up on the same day, comes right over to me. We aren't busy, so we strike up a conversation about cosplaying, and he asked if I could help him with one he wanted to work on. I asked to see a picture, and it's essentially a muscle suit with a loincloth. Immediately after showing me, he jumps into,
I can't pull it off though. I'm too fat to pull it off.
and of course I start telling him how cosplay is for everybody, and he can wear whatever he wants. He asks again if I can help him sometime with it, and that he would pay me a lot of money to. I decline, but he scribbles down his number.
In case you change your mind.
I threw it away. The next day he comes in again. This time we're busy, and makes a beeline right for me. I was putting fabric away in the back corner of the store, and instantly starts berating me.
Why didn't you call me? I gave you my number so you could call me. I told you I would give you a lot of money.
I quickly look around, and there's nobody, just me, 5'2", and Neckbeard, who's a very big guy. I start to tell him I need to go back to the counter, and he's stopping me and backing me up further into the corner. I have no idea what to do or how to flag anyone down. Then I remember the headset we all wear, and I just push the talk button, and between him yelling at me, I would say things like, "Sir, I really need to get out of the fleece section and go back to the counter." Soon an employee came and saw what was going on and said, "OP, it's time for your break, hurry up." And she grabbed my arm and whisked me away. I had to write up an incident report with my manager, who decided to not ban this guy from the store. So instead, whenever he came in, people would use a code over the headset to let me know to go sit in the back until he left. It worked for a while until one day we were really busy. I was a manager myself now and was running a register. I didn't look up and just called the next person. That's when I heard,
Wow, I haven't seen you in a while.
and I looked up and saw it was Neckbeard. I put on my best fake smile and just said, "Oh, my schedule has changed a lot. I work another job now." He asked me where, and I just told him, in the strip mall. Of course, I wasn't going to tell him the actual place. I thought it was over until right before he left. He put his hand on my shoulder and said,
Well, when you're off tonight, you should give me a call.
I had to be walked to my car after my shift and switched to overnights so I never see him again. I still live in fear I'll see him at a convention sometime and worry what I'll do if I do. This started a few years back when I was in middle school. In the 7th grade, to be specific, there was a guy in my class, Seb. He didn't seem to be the type of person he is. He was into Star Wars, and his favorite character was Kylo Ren, which he drew frequently, and was really good at skating. We didn't really talk much, but we texted over Kik a lot. After about a year of communicating over Kik, we transfer over to Discord and have some pretty serious conversations, and around February of the next year we start to date. I also moved for the 8th grade, so it was getting harder and harder to communicate. Even so, we still managed to talk for around an hour a day. I'm not sure what happened, but Seb's personality began to change. If I didn't text him back within a few minutes, he would get concerned and spam me with tons of texts asking if I was alright or if I was hanging out with other people, even if I was asleep. It got pretty annoying, but I couldn't just ignore him because he was my boyfriend. Before the start of high school, I got my first phone and decided to let Seb have my number. After a while, Seb would call me at random times of the day to ask me really strange questions, which I prefer not to add. After about 2 months of this, I decided I didn't want to talk to him anymore because his behavior was really overwhelming. And Seb being Seb, he constantly asked if I was okay. I was buried in homework, and him bombarding me with texts didn't help. After about a week of not texting him, I decided to text back. I was nervous because I didn't know what M might do. He answered less than a minute later. We had a conversation just as we had before, but this felt different. It felt wrong. After a few minutes of talking, Seb calls, and we finish the conversation over smartphone. Once it's over, and we're about to end the call, he says to me that he loves me. I find myself unable to say it back to him, feeling the same feelings from before. I say, okay, and hang up. I go back to not talking to Seb because I needed to focus in on my studies and not him. I'm not sure how much time passes after that, but I get a call. It's Seb. He asks me where I have been in a pretty angry tone. At this point, Seb has tried texting me on several different platforms, and I'm just tired of all of the texts from him. I decided to stop talking to him altogether because Seb is starting to get obsessive. I understand that I was his girlfriend and he can get worried, but that doesn't make up for texting me multiple times a day when I have already stated that I was working. I stopped texting back or answering phone calls because I was too afraid to break it off, but I knew I wouldn't be with Seb anymore. He had sent images of self-harm of his body, and I was scared of what he might do if I break up with him. Then, November of that same year, my worst fear had come to life. I was transferring back to the school district from before, and I remember feeling the dread from the realization that I'd go to school with Seb again. On the first day there, all I remember is feeling scared because I didn't want to have to confront him about the 2 months absent I'd taken from talking to him. Around a weekend, he spotted me from down the hallway while I was going to my first period of class. I felt my stomach drop, and I saw Seb's expression change as I quickly put my head down and rushed away. Later that same day, Seb calls me. I let his call ring out. Once the phone stops ringing, and he asks if I was going to the said high school, he said that he thought he saw me and asked sarcastically if he was going insane. Even though this was sarcasm, I felt the pain of guilt run through my body. Even then, I couldn't bring myself to call him back. I was once again spammed through my phone. Around a month later in November, we moved again, as this high school was a transitional school before I moved out of state. He called me frequently, and every time I'd let him go to voicemail. Every time I did, the messages Seb left got more and more unsettled. It got to the point that he threatened suicide if I did not answer. After a while, he stopped, and a mutual friend let Seb know that I was okay, and that I didn't want relations with him anymore. And the mutual told me that Seb wanted to give me a letter before I left, and I couldn't receive it because the day I left was the day Seb was planning to give it to me. Apparently he had been looking for me outside of the school knowing that I walk home, but this day, my dad picked me up just after 12:30 around the middle of the third block. I was grateful that my dad picked me up early because even then I was still scared of the confrontation, but after I left the state, I felt the worst kind of guilt I ever had, the displeasure of experiencing. So yeah, after stopping the calls with his phone, he began calling with other phones in the middle of the day. One I remember is when I was in my English class. At my old school, he called me convinced I was still at the old school, and being in class, I ignored the call because I could have gotten in trouble for answering. After this incident, I blocked his phone number knowing it was him, seeing that Seb has done this before. I also blocked Seb on other platforms because I was done with his actions towards me, and I didn't want him talking to me at all. A few weeks go by, I found out that Seb had an Instagram account and blocked me on there before he could find me. I sought out his handle. I obsessed over finding it and realized his actions in turn made me obsess over him as well. Finding him was to avoid him. I found Seb's handle and blocked him as soon as I found it. I was ashamed because I didn't want to give Seb the satisfaction of constantly thinking about him. Now, I'm in a healthy relationship with a person who makes me happy and helps me see past the guilt of the past and look for the future. Wow, that's incredibly cheesy. Note, apparently Seb has done this to other girls before and after me. Also, he was a neckbeard. LOL.